All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whenever it is you're watching this. We are jumping in here. We're at lesson 3, chapter 3 in the book of Romans. So, a little caveat before we get started. You might hear my lovely children in the background. They're in the backyard, and I'm by the back window close to them. So, if you hear screaming or crying children, please don't judge too harshly. Remember, for the same measure you judge, it'll be judged to you. We talked about this last week. So, let's jump into this. So, you kind of see here's the shepherd versus sheep guide, just to kind of see it, just kind of give you an overview of what this kind of looks like and how that will flow out. Again, trying to have all the discussion, application, and prayer all on one page. So you can just show that up there nice and clean. Yours will not look so nice and clean. It's kind of convoluted and crazy right here, but this one is nice and pretty. So if you need to kind of step back from all this craziness, I just had to kind of crunch this in a little bit in order to get it all on 2 pages. I just didn't want to do it in 3. So if that bothers you, put that in CCB, and I can easily make this into 3 pages and space this out a little bit better. But I was just trying to keep it down to 2 in case anybody prints it off or any of that kind of stuff. I don't know. So again, this is why CCB is so important, to let me know what works for you and what does not. So yeah, please let me know. Okay, and I'm probably going to keep this part in here right now. This little goal and synopsis of City Life Group. I'll probably take that out down the road, but right now, I think this is probably my last one. I'll leave it up, but just want to leave it up one more time so you could all see it and remember that's there, and I'll put little reminders for that, so that'll be a lot smarter. So starting off this week, the first thing you're going to notice is the strike through with Icebreaker. A lot of y'all saying, didn't do it, didn't have time to do it, didn't have any new people. Again, we didn't, because a lot of people aren't using it, we're not going to waste our time. Again, this is the benefit of CCB feedback. Please don't stop. I know with week 2, it's Thursday. You can see up here Thursday at 4:52 p.m. And I think I only had like 3 out of 7 groups of it so far. So please post and let us know what's working and not, because we're assuming things, but we need to know for sure. So it's incredibly helpful. Again, you don't have to write a 500-page thing. The more the merrier. And again, you don't have to be the one always doing it. If you want to get that from somebody else, they can do that as well. So there you go. So if you want to find an icebreaker online, there are so many great places to do that. Just Google icebreakers for small groups, and then get you some good things. Or if you know what, we know each other all here pretty well. There's no new people. Let's just jump right into this. But again, if you have new people, fill the room. Make sure you think about it and go there. A couple things. It's not on here. I don't have it handy dandy on me, but just a couple things I've just noticed talking with a few of you guys and thing. Remember, as a City Life Group leader, you are leading, not following. You set the pace, you set the tone, you set the methodology in which your group can do. So remember yourself. Hey, you have been called out as a leader, as somebody who we see maturity in and passion for Jesus in. And so walk in that authority in your group and have that. And that's a reminder for some of you. And maybe that's a new thing to hear from some otherwise. So remember that. So icebreaker, don't do, up to you. If you want to do one, knock yourself out. So again, here's kind of a little, the reason this little paragraph here is kind of a, I guess right here, the synopsis of the sermon, and kind of just kind of a thing. So you can read that, don't read that. Again, let me know if that even is valuable to you or not, because that can save me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines of space here to make it a little bit more legible. So again, if this is helpful to you, hopefully kind of center your group in as a transition, then awesome. Let me know. If not, if it's just a waste, then please let me know that as well, so I can clean this up. But again, we're covering today in our group verses 9 through 26. We actually encourage you to pause, because again, we have it broken up here in sections. Read that whole section together. Or I think Terrence said in his group they read the whole chapter, because I'm leaving out 8 verses on the front end and 5 verses on the back end of this one, of chapter 3. So if you want to read the whole thing, fine, but read it as in these verses. Read it as a whole, and then come back and let's look at our page. So get out your phones, get out your Bible. Let's look real quick and read Romans 9, 3, 9 through 26. And I think this is the ESV version that we have on here. And I think me and Chris might change a couple words to match up better from the New American Standard, which is what I'll be preaching out of this coming Saturday. So first section, we're looking at verses 9 through 20. It's all saying kind of the same thing. You'll see it again here. Again, sorry, let's talk about the destination. I apologize. 2 big things from the sermon, they're going to hopefully come out, we'll find out, is the partiality of sin, right? Or the egalitarian nature of sin, right? All people are equal when it comes to sin, right? We're all equal at the foot of the cross, right? But also the impartiality or the egalitarianism of belief, right? And we'll see that in a verse here a little bit, and we'll talk about it in the sermon, hopefully. But also we want to encourage each other. This is a really key phrase here. Take the first practical step this week to live unashamed of the gospel. Remember this while it's here. It's right there, unashamed. It's on all of our starters, on all of our sermon stuff, City Life Group stuff. This is kind of our goal. What we're trying to do is be unashamed of the gospel. So our first step, okay? Again, trying to encourage people. I know like Scott Dolly had an awesome testimony he put on CCB, and some people may just be a little intimidated by that and aren't there yet. Hey, we're not trying to hate on you. Just take a step and let's build on that, right? Start somewhere and we can begin to build that. So just take a step. By the way, Scott would be a great person to talk about that. He's got a lot of good ideas how to do that, okay? And I'll share a few as well down the road. So you read the text, you look at the first section of verses here, 9 through 20, and you read this first question here. Count how many times Paul uses definitive language, so words like all, no one, or none, etc. There's maybe a couple other ones, in describing the impartiality of sin. So that's what this whole section is describing. So are we better than the Jews? Not at all. If we've already charged that all, both Jews and Greeks, are under sin. So there's one. As is written, none is righteous. There's another one, not one. There's another one, no one understands. There's another one, no one seeks God. All have turned aside. Together, that's another one. They become worthless. No one does good, not even one. That throws it up a grave. They kind of go through all that, blah, 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 blah. Verse 19, there's no fear before the God. You could do no one there. Now we know that whatever the law speaks to those who are under the law, so that, here it is, every mouth may be stopped. Not most mouths, not some mouths, but every mouth will be stopped. And the whole world may be held accountable for God, for by the works of the law, no human being will be justified inside of God. All right, so I counted 12. I might have just counted 13 right there. I'm not sure, but at least 12. So again, to kind of get people seeing like, okay, a few verses here, Paul is going crazy. Okay, big question here. Why? Why is he so fracking just dominantly, passionately saying no one is right? We know chapter 20, verse 23 down here, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. There's another one, right? So we all have sinned, right? Why do we do that? I think to make his point obvious, anytime in a short space you are repeating something like crazy, it's called a refrain. He's trying to make his point very obvious and very airtight, right? There should be no debate in the millennia to come what Paul means right here. There should be no argument here. Okay, all are under sin's power and control without God, even, or maybe even especially those people who attend church, right? Because a lot of people who attend church don't know that they are in sin, whereas those who aren't in church, they probably maybe have a better grasp of that, right? So all people, though, outside of God and the Holy Spirit abiding in them, are under the power and control of God. It's an equal playing field, right? Even those in the church. So Randy, I think the reason why he does this is to destroy pride, right, which should not and cannot exist with the Spirit of God. To destroy pride and also to set up the good news of the gospel, right? This is the whole black cloth and the diamond idea. You have to have need, and Paul creates the space for his readers in the first 3 chapters, right? Before you can go get well, you have to acknowledge that you're sick, and that's what Paul is doing in chapters 1 through 320. Really to 323 if you think about it, but really to 320, he is making a point. Listen, nobody has it all together. Nobody's goodness is good enough. And he's making that incredibly point, I think, to destroy pride and to set up the gospel, okay? So it's the impartiality of sin section. Hopefully that'll make sense after the sermon. We talk about that. Hey, the egalitarianism, sin is an equal opportunist in all those kind of areas, and we see that, and the implications of that we'll talk about in the sermon. I just don't think we'll have time. Maybe you can bring this out here for some of the implications that we'll talk about in the sermon. So second section here, 21 through 23, small little section, but incredibly powerful. I hope you can just enjoy these 2 words right here after these texts. But now, and amazing words here. So you can read through that again or look at it. In verse 22 right here, Paul now references the impartiality of belief, or the egalitarianism of belief, which is as important, maybe even more important actually, as the impartiality of sin. Okay, so what does and what doesn't this scripture mean by the word belief, right? Because here in verse 22, the righteousness of God through faith in Jesus Christ is for all who believe. All. Okay, it doesn't matter your wealth, doesn't matter your moral standing, doesn't matter your church attendance, doesn't matter your tithing schedule, doesn't matter if you're doing quarter class, not quarter class, mission trip, not mission trip, doesn't matter if you're amazing and sharing your faith and breaking chains all over the world, but if you simply believe, what does that mean though? Is belief actually a simple thing? I don't think so. Okay, this belief cannot, we'll talk about this in the sermon, this belief cannot mean intellectual assent or agreement by absolute far. This word says all who believe, right, in the righteousness of God through faith in Jesus. For all who believe, that belief cannot simply mean, oh, I agree that Jesus was a good teacher, or I like Jesus. It's more than intellectual. It's more than emotional. It's something way, way, way more than that. It's not less than that, but it's way, way, way more than that, okay? And then here's just some thoughts, and this is maybe not complete. You can call me out on it if you think. Belief means commitment to someone to the exclusion of all other past, this is huge, past, current, and future loves. So believing this thing, a solid, life-changing belief in Jesus means anything that I used to, am currently, and will ever be enticed to centering my life around, I'm excluding that, and I'm becoming a one-man believer. Okay, I think about it like in marriage, right? I believe in exclusive, exclusive, not just now, but in the future. Self-sacrificing, that means looking at her benefit. Relationship with Eleanor will satisfy me more than a self-serving, promiscuous one will. And here's a key part, huge key part here. If Jay Ross is listening to this, he'll amen me out loud. And my actions have to agree with that. You can't just say, I believe this type of thing, but then I'm promiscuous sexually or even emotionally or mentally with other women. No, or that I'm even being selfish in my relationship with Eleanor. No. My actions affirm what I believe, right? A good tree will bear out good fruit. You'll know them by their fruit. My actions affirm what's going on. My actions don't determine what's going on underneath, but my belief should determine my actions, right? So belief, another thing, belief equals trust by the act of committing totally. So it is trust, and you can think of trust, faith, belief, all the same word in Greek, pistis. Okay, pistuo is the verb, I believe. Okay, but you show your trust by the act. There's a visible sign of it, committing, and it's a total act. It's not a partial thing. Okay, so again, I go really strong on this. I think a lot of people in church, maybe in our church, possibly in our church, probably in our church, have been in church for a long time, have said a sinner's prayer when they're 5, maybe were confirmed or baptized as an infant, but they have never totally committed, right? To me, the total commitment thing is somebody saying something to the effect of, I know that it'll cost me everything in my past, good and bad, everything currently, good and bad, and also everything in the future, good and bad, but I am committed to Jesus totally, right? So for all who say that, and their actions verify that, to all who believe, the righteousness of God is given through faith, to all who believe, right? All. There's no partiality with that. There's impartial. It is egalitarian in all possible ways. It's equal for that. If you have that kind of belief in God, there is no chance God will not honor that and reward it. Okay, but anything less than that, you're not in the belief category. So again, that's the Randy Willis thing. If you want to go some other route than that, talk to me and let's hash that out. Okay, so third section, 24 through 26, and this 3 verses, sweet Jesus, is such a tough 3 verses to get through. You could just spend years and years and years just thinking about them, let alone talking about it in discussion or sermon. So this is probably 3 of the most gospel drenched verses in the entire Bible. Some say it's the center of the book of Romans. It is definitely the catalyst of the book of Romans. This is definitely by this point, we have shifted gears, right? Chapters 1 through 3 so far up to this point are pretty harsh, okay? But once you get to this part, now we're understanding, okay, what is this? I'm not ashamed of the gospel. What is it? Here's what it is. And this is kind of what we're asking here. Okay, so this past Saturday at the sermon, we looked at how Jesus' righteousness is demonstrated, okay? This is what we're saying. It was demonstrated by the words justified, redemption, and appropriation. It's in this text. Can you recall how these 3 words demonstrate publicly Jesus' righteousness, right? So here's where we get this from, just so you can know, okay? I don't think you can even bring this out, but we underline the words for it. There's justified, there's propitiation, and there's redemption, right? So it's saying all who believe are justified by his grace as a gift, okay? You actually can take this part right here is a parenthetical thought. So if you read 22, the righteousness of God through faith in Jesus Christ for all who believe, and this is actually not a period, this is actually a semicolon, for all who believe, and then there's a little parenthetical thought. Okay, for all who believe and are justified by his grace as a gift through the redemption that is in Christ Jesus, whom God displayed, blah, 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 blah. You get it, right? This is a parenthetical thought reminding you back, right? The reason why all who believe, okay, because there's no distinction, because all have sinned. So all have sinned, therefore all can believe as well. I have this quote actually, hopefully I'll talk about in the sermon, but I love this last part right here. Sin's empire cannot stretch farther than Christ's kingdom. Okay, sin's empire cannot stretch farther than Christ's kingdom. I like that. That does something for me. Okay, so again, this is what we're saying. These 3 words now set up to this part right here. So we hear this, follow with me here. Hopefully I do this well in the sermon, but if not, you're getting it right now while it's fresh in my mind. That means all who believe are justified, all who believe who are justified by grace as a gift through redemption, God displayed publicly as a propitiation by his blood, all of that, okay? All these things happened. Jesus did all these things. God did all these things. this, the happening of all these things, was to demonstrate or display publicly God's righteousness. That's why. That's why God did all this stuff, to display God's righteousness, because in his divine forbearance, he had passed over their former sins. We can talk about that later. Okay, all of that, okay, all that demonstration, all of these things, it was to demonstrate his righteousness. So there we are again, his righteousness at the present time, so that he might be just and the justifier of the one who has faith, pistis, belief in Jesus. Same Greek word right there. Okay, so we say now, we looked at these three things. Can you recall from the sermon, or just in your own knowledge maybe, how these three words demonstrate, okay, right, this is where we're getting it from. How do these three words demonstrate God's righteousness? How do these three words demonstrate God's righteousness? Specifically Jesus' righteousness. How do these three things tell us what Jesus did and how that makes him right, his righteousness, makes him more right and deserving those things, right? How do we do that, right? So here's a few thoughts, okay? And again, hopefully I'll do well in the sermon. Pray for me. The first, justified. What does justified mean? That's what we're kind of getting. Let's define these terms. Justified means to be declared acceptable or worthy. Okay, I put it here like a child being adopted, right? Because later we'll get to forgiveness. Forgiveness is you may go. Justification is that you may come in, right? And this is what Jesus says. Hey, listen, you are justified. There's a court kind of idea of this, of like, hey, you have been declared justified, you're acceptable, worthy to go, you're free, which kind of, all these kind of bleed together a little bit, right? But this word justified is you are, some people think if I am not good at work, or I'm not a good mother or father, or I'm not married, then my life has no meaning. It's not just, I can't justify why I exist on this earth, right? And you can always tell this by what's being threatened, right? So like if your money's being threatened, your job, your singleness, your marriage, your kids, your health, somebody else you love, that relationship, whatever it is, that is the thing that you are justifying yourself, right? And we either justify ourselves through pride, or we allow, and we're our own gods, or we allow some other object to justify us and say, hey, I think you're worthy because you're good at this, or you have this, right? So what does it mean to be justified? Same thing, declared acceptable or worthy by something. Just like a child being adopted, right? Before a child being adopted, they're abandoned, they have nobody, there's nobody justifying, saying you're acceptable, you're worthy, you're wanted. But child being adopted, not waiting, but child actually being adopted, done, gives a sense of acceptability and worthiness that we have never felt before. Okay, and that's what we mean. So redemption literally means to buy back. This was a slave term, and don't think slaves like African slave trade in America. That's not what's going on in the Bible, especially in Paul's day. This is people who, like bankruptcy. There's no bankruptcy law. So to redeem was something you did. You were stuck. Right? If I had took out a debt from Chris, I'm $10,000, and I didn't have the money to pay that back, I would literally be Chris's servant, his slave. I would live on his property. I would work for him until I accrued off that debt. And then or maybe my good friend Scott Fiddler said, hey, I love Randy. I'm his family member. I'm his brother. I don't want him to be like this. I'm going to redeem. I'm going to buy back to set him free from the oppression of power of sin and death. Okay, this is being set free from the oppression of power of sin, death, what idolatry does. This is what I mean by redemption, to buy back, literally means. Okay, so we see how this is what Jesus did as well on the cross. And the last word, the word that too many people know, but everybody should, propitiation, is satisfying the righteous wrath and or judgment of God, right? Satisfying those things by paying the fee. I'm thinking of like a traffic ticket, or serving the sentence, like a jail thing, or taking the electric chair that was meant for us. Okay, wrath and punishment has to fall on somebody. Okay, and this is why we say here that God can be just and the justifier, because God's just and something has to be done, but He's justified in the sense that He's the one who took on the propitiation of our sin. He's the one who His death justified us. He's the one who His death and resurrection redeemed us from the penalty and power of sin. Right? And so that's what we mean by these words. Okay, so that's what we're going for. So here's another way of summarizing this. So Jesus' righteousness, okay, is the good news that His trial and execution was meant for us. That was our trial. That was our execution we should have done, but He took it. And this broke our chains and it delivers from the power of sin, which is death. And He laid down His rights as the Son on the cross, and then He gave them to those who believe. And let's remember our belief definition in Him. Okay, so this is what we mean. Jesus is righteous. This is what we mean by the cross. This is the gospel, the good news. This is what He did. These are the things He did for us, right? And we say it's good news because you're looking for justification everywhere. You're enslaved. Everybody's enslaved to something. And we're all under the penalty of wrath outside of Jesus. So we need help, okay? And Jesus did these three things. This is what makes Him righteous. And He gives us this righteousness. And this righteousness He gives to us as a gift, right, as Paul say it, blah, blah, blah. Right here. We were justified by his grace as a gift. Justified freely is what this word means. Justified by his grace as a gift. We didn't do anything for it. He just gave it to us. He stopped being a son and took on the penalty so we could be the son. He became naked so we could clothe. He died so we could live. He was rejected so we could be accepted. Read Isaiah 53. It spells it all out perfectly, right? So once your group has talked about that, again, I'm talking a lot about it to give you some understanding so you can know how far or how not far your group needs to go. Again, the point of our group is not these 3 questions. Hopefully these 3 questions are said well in the sermon, and they get that, and you're really kind of recapping or catching people up who weren't there, and you're kind of giving them some basis for the discussion and the application. This is the main gist of what we're trying to get to, right? So don't shortchange your group. Don't put it all to here. So if you got to get through this quickly, that's okay. You need to shortchange some of this. Hey, listen, you know what? Let's meet up this week and we can talk some more. I don't really get that. Okay, well, let's talk some more. Okay, don't shortchange it and do nothing for these questions, these 3 sections, but move through it quickly. Okay, but get quickly to this. Separate the same gender partners 2 or 3. And I know I think Thomas mentioned in his group that his group had a hard time wanting to split into that small of a groups. Hey, listen, remember I said at the beginning, you are the leader. Okay. So hey, you know what? No, I think we're going to do this, guys. I want to try it out. Again, here's why. Right? You get to a lot of people need to know why. Okay, why are we doing this? Why? Because I think, as even Tom mentioned in his thing, okay, because we're trying to really get in and have some good discussion with these questions. And the bigger the group is, the longer it's going to take to have that discussion, and the less time we're going to have for praying in ministry. I think Tom said they had a good discussion, but they didn't have any time to pray at the end. Okay, that's a big no. We definitely don't want to do that. We want to have prayer time. And so, with all that, please lead your group and say, hey, listen, okay, hey, let's just try it out, guys. Or hey, this is why we're doing it. Give them that reason why. Does that make sense? Okay, I know you're a little comfortable. Come on, let's press in and let's try that. Okay, now let me say this. When you split, you'll explain here, you'll understand here in a second. When you split into these partners of 2 or 3, you as the City Life group leader or one of your other leaders, strong person. If I'm in Shawnee's group, I'm going to grab Danielle, Juliet, Margaret, Carrie, maybe Beth, or different people that I know where they are, and I know they're solid and they're good. Okay, but for me, if it's me, I'm doing this, right? And before I get to this question right here, which is a big question, okay, I'm going to partner up with somebody if there's somebody in my group that I don't think is a believer, or I'm not quite sure, right? And then maybe there's only 1 or 2 or just one, I'm going to go grab that person quickly. Or if it's a girl, I'm going to send a girl leader like my wife to go do that, or somebody else, right? Or if it's a guy, you do those kind of things as well. So quickly, be very, very, this is a huge question here. We'll talk about in a second. Do not let it up to chance with that. Of course, God can do anything, so don't hear I'm not saying there. But be intentional as a leader, and you go and spend some time talking, because you're going to have the best chance at explaining this well. So here's the first question, the big question, and then from this question, you're going to go to 2 sides. Keeping in mind our definitions up here, okay, of belief and of his righteousness. Okay, questions 2 and 3. Sections 2 and 3. Okay, remember what we said about belief? Yeah. Remember what we said about righteousness? Yeah. Okay, keep in mind those things. Do you believe that his righteousness is enough to satisfy your soul? Why or why not? Big question, right? Big question. Do you have that kind of, remember we said up here, this trust by the act of committing totally, past, current, and future, right? Do you have that kind of a belief that his righteousness, what he did, his justification, his redemption, his propitiation for you, that is enough to satisfy your soul? Or is the search over for you? Are you married? Not that you're dating Christ, not that you're interested, not that you just met him a couple of days ago, not that you're engaged to the dude, and one day, no, like, I am all in. Do you believe that his righteousness is enough? Okay, this is a big question. We're jumping right in. That's what I said. Remember now, you make sure if you don't sure about somebody, or you don't think they are, you know they're not for sure, then you definitely need to make sure you grab them and be their partner. Make it awkward. It's okay. Better make it awkward when you're selecting partners than to make it awkward when you're asking this question. You know what I'm saying? So think about that. Okay, based off the answer, each person's answer, you ask them these questions or these questions. So if me and Chris are in a group and we both say, yeah, we both believe, then we can ask each other these questions. Okay, so who's someone, Chris, who believes that his righteousness is more than enough to satisfy your soul forever? What could, keyword could, your life look like if you were perfectly unashamed of the gospel? How could you, quote unquote, demonstrate his righteousness? So he demonstrated his righteousness by doing this for us. How can you demonstrate his righteousness to the rest of the world? Okay, use your imagination, dream, not what I'm doing. If I really, really, really believe this and I was perfectly unashamed, man, yeah, I think this is what life would look like that. You dream a little bit, talk about it. Okay, then it's okay, well, great, man, some great pictures of that. Go back and forth if you're both in this category. Okay, so what is the first step you can take in making that dream a reality this week? Just a step, not just a step, but the first, because there's going to be many steps, and insinuating there will be secondary and follow-up steps to come, which there are. What is the first step you can do in making this dream a reality? Okay, and then how can I serve you this week as you take this first step? Can I text you some accountability? Can I do these things? What is that? Okay, first step for me would be like if I'm at my workplace, everybody's different, so everybody's things could be different. If I haven't really done any evangelism at my workplace, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find a very casual way to just mention that I go to church, or that I'm a Christian, or that I believe in the Bible. Right? I'm not going to get into it with anybody. I'm not going to have any kind of conversations about it. I'm just going to somehow slide that one in there. Okay. First step. Whew. Okay, good job. I did it this week. We're not going from Mount Rushmore. First week here, just, hey, what is a first step I can take, right? And maybe everybody at your workplace knows your workplace. Maybe you need to invite that person to a group or to church. Maybe you need to share testimony. Maybe you just need to ask them, hey, can I pray for you? So there's a complaint or something. Hey, do you mind if I just pray for you? I really believe in this. I really believe in this Jesus thing. I heard a great testimony of this business exec who was the VP of a company, and a lady who worked about 2 or 3 tiers under him really screwed up some sort of order and cost the company a lot of money. And the president was really ticked off and was looking for heads of role. And the VP stepped in and said, hey, listen, that was my fault. I'll take the blame for that. That was my mistake. And of course, the president didn't fire the VP. So he kind of took the hit and got, he kind of got a bad rep, and the VP kind of took it unbeknownst. So the woman, 2 or 3 tiers down, who everybody knew it was her fault, came to the VP and said, why on earth did you do that? And he says, well, because I believe in the gospel of Jesus Christ, and I think that's what he did for me, and so I've been called to live a life like that for other people. Do you mind if I tell you some more about that? Of course, absolutely. You kidding me? What's the first? Well, you don't have to get there. Maybe you're not there. Maybe that's not a practical thing for you. But how can you do that? Maybe it's at the grocery store. Maybe your neighbors. Do you know your neighbors' names? All of them. Do you know what they do? If you invite them over for dinner, for lunch, just prayer walks, something. Find a first step, okay? Now, if you or your partner, hopefully you don't say that actually, if your partner or somebody's partner says, no, if that's what belief means, I've never done that, then you say, well, what are some obstacles that are keeping you from that? I don't really know. I thought about it. I just didn't really, maybe ignorance, maybe apathy, maybe anger, maybe a certain person, some bitterness, some unforgiveness, some hate, some confusion. Could be a myriad of things. Okay, so are there any steps you'd be willing to take to challenge those obstacles? Are there any steps? I'm asking them the same question here a little bit. Dream a little bit. Like, are you willing to talk to somebody, to go over some Bible stuff with me, to pray some more? Are you willing to come and keep doing coming to City Life Group and seeing how that works out? Are you willing to do blank and blank and blank, right? Go on a mission trip, go through a purple book with somebody. What can you do? Dream with them, help them think through that, and then ask them the same question: how can I serve you this week? If you're willing to take this first step, okay? If you're willing, over here we're assuming they're willing because they're believers. But here's the thing: if you're willing to take this first step, how can I serve you? Right? How can I serve you? And doing that type of thing. And maybe they don't have anything, maybe they do. Okay, now over here, I put it in this one because I ran out of space. This will be what you'll show the sheep, the group. Take the rest of the time to encourage and affirm one another the best you can. So take some time, I guess, to do that. Then transition to a time of spirit-empowered prayer for one another. And this is a huge phrase for us. You should all know it. Spirit-empowered prayer for one another. And then here's some prayer points, 2 prayer points to do. But really, you're praying for whatever they put on here, how are the obstacles or that kind of dream thing, or some, maybe as they're thinking about, man, it'd be great if I did this and this, but I'm so afraid, or I don't know this. Those are obstacles. You can begin praying for courage, for boldness, for wisdom, for opportunity, whatever. If you have a group that one person believes and one person doesn't believe, then the person who doesn't believe, ask the person who believes this question. The person who does believe, ask the person that question. So these are questions that you ask your partner. So wherever your partner comes, these are the questions you ask them that way. And then you end with your prayer. So there you go. Hopefully this video isn't too long. I don't know what my time change is right now, but I hope that makes sense. As always, please give us some comments on CCB. Let us know what's working, what's not working. We'd love to know. Please, again, remember, this is a little bit different right here. You don't have it in your guide, these little guiding points to help move through it. I hope that makes sense. Again, let me know if this is kind of silly, or if this is kind of silly, or if it's so crammed in here that you want a third page so I can open this up a little bit more. Then really the big thing here, we'd love to know, and I encourage you, please follow up this week with your group and ask them, hey, how did your discussion go? Where you, especially if you know everybody in your group or most people in your group, hey, I saw you praying with so-and-so, I don't really know him or her. What's their deal? Do they say they believe? They don't believe? How can we do it? Don't assume that everybody in your group does believe, right? And even don't assume that because people say they do believe, as much as enough time that they actually do. Be praying your tail off for these people in your groups, and just begging God for their souls, and for their belief, because everybody believes in something, themselves or some other thing to give them satisfaction, meaning, purpose, joy, peace. We're just praying that God and Jesus' righteousness and the gospel of Jesus is what that is. So pray for your group. Remember why we're here. You are joining the story of his glory by being a shepherd in City Life groups. You are helping us as a church to honor God by establishing Christ-centered, Spirit-empowered, socially responsible churches and campus ministries in every nation. So let's get to work. Let's get after this. Let's not grow weary in doing good, but let's remember the gospel. Let's enjoy the gospel. Let's enjoy the story of his glory. But then let's get to work and be about our Father's business. I'm proud of you guys. Love you guys. Think the world of you guys. Hope you're having a great weekend as I'm doing this video now. And hopefully you enjoyed church this Saturday. We'll find out. All right, guys. Peace out. Let me know if you have any questions or things for clarity. Have a good one. Bye.